Zara Solari had never felt more out of place in her life. Standing in front of the grand, towering gates of the Galactic Academy, she felt the weight of her origins pressing on her like 1,000 tons. Earth, her home, was considered a backwater planet, small, unremarkable, and fragile in comparison to the advanced civilizations of the galaxy. The Galactic Academy had only ever accepted a handful of Earthborn, and they were usually dismissed as weak, unworthy of the rigorous training that awaited those who were lucky enough to be chosen. Zara had been told from a young age that Earth was a place of survival. She had grown up listening to the stories of her ancestors, who had fought to overcome the harsh conditions of their planet. Earth had no superhuman abilities, no alien technologies, and no advanced genetic enhancements. But it had something else. Something that most of the galaxy seemed to have forgotten: the will to survive. Zara had inherited that will, and today, it would be put to the test. The instructors, all seasoned veterans from various parts of the galaxy, watched her from the sidelines. Their eyes were cold, calculating, and dismissive. Earthborn. They had seen them come and go, weaklings, who had no place among the galaxy's finest. To the instructors, Earth was little more than a training ground for the most basic of survival skills. And Zara, a seemingly fragile young woman from that world, would prove no different from the rest. "Another Earthborn," muttered one instructor, shaking his head. "Let's see how long she lasts." Zara stood tall, her brown eyes steely with determination. She was small, not much taller than 5 feet, but every muscle in her body was finely tuned to one purpose: survival. She had learned the hard way that Earth demanded everything of those who lived there, and she had given it her all. The first test was one of pure strength. Zara was led into a massive arena, where she was introduced to the first challenge: combat, with an alien species known as the Crawl. Towering, reptilian creatures with muscles rippling under tough scales. The Crawl were known for their brutal fighting style and unmatched strength. Their claws were sharp enough to slice through metal, and their tails could crush bones with a single swing. It was said that only the strongest could face them in battle and walk away unscathed. Zara's heart pounded in her chest as the Crawl eyed her with amusement. They were clearly unimpressed. One of the creatures let out a low growl, as if mocking her presence. The instructors, watching from the control room above, seemed to enjoy the spectacle. "Another Earthling thinking they can make it through," one instructor chuckled, leaning back in his chair. "She'll be crushed in minutes." But Zara wasn't listening. She was focused on the task at hand. Her Earthborn instincts kicked in, and she fell into a deep, meditative state, blocking out the doubts and ridicule that surrounded her. The arena's ground shook as the Crawl charged. Zara moved swiftly, barely dodging the first strike, as the Crawl's claws scraped against the ground where she had just stood. The creature growled, its eyes narrowing as it prepared for another attack. It was faster than she had expected, but she was no stranger to speed. Earth had taught her that sometimes brains mattered more than brawn. Zara ducked and rolled, narrowly avoiding the swipe of the Crawl's tail. As the creature turned to follow her, she spotted an exposed weakness in its armor, a small gap near its shoulder. It was a long shot, but Zara wasn't about to back down. With a quick breath, she dashed toward the Crawl, using the environment to her advantage. She leaped off a nearby rock formation, catching the creature off guard. Her body collided with the Crawl's, and with all the strength she could muster, she drove her elbow into the weak spot on its shoulder. The Crawl let out a sharp cry of pain as Zara's elbow connected, sending it stumbling back. The creature was stunned for a moment, enough for Zara to take a few steps back and reassess. The instructors had fallen silent. They hadn't expected this. The Crawl roared in fury and rushed at her again. But this time, Zara was ready. She didn't try to outmuscle the creature; it was impossible. Instead, she used her agility, dodging and weaving, wearing it down. Her moves were precise, calculated, a dance of survival. The Crawl's attacks grew slower as the battle dragged on, and Zara saw an opening. She reached for a sharp stone nearby, using it as a makeshift weapon. and with one swift motion, she stabbed it into the gap on the crawl's side. The creature let out a final, guttural scream before collapsing, its body crashing to the ground. Zara stood over the defeated creature, her breath heavy, but her stance unbroken. It wasn't a victory that came from strength. It came from strategy, from knowledge, from understanding her opponent. She had survived, and in doing so, she had sent a message. The instructors were no longer laughing. The room was silent. For a long moment, no one spoke. Zara wiped the sweat from her brow, her eyes still focused on the creature's massive body lying in front of her. "Well," one of the instructors finally said, his voice tinged with disbelief. "That's unexpected." Another instructor cleared his throat. "I've never seen a crawl go down so quickly. She's different." Zara didn't care about their words. She had done what they thought was impossible. But there was no time to bask in victory. The next challenge was already waiting. As she was led to the next arena, Zara's mind was already on the task at hand. Earth had taught her one thing: there was always a way. The galaxy's expectations meant nothing. She had come here to prove that Earthborn were not weak. They were survivors, and she was determined to show them all that Earth had more to offer than they could ever imagine. Zara's heart raced as she entered the next arena. The lights above flickered, casting long shadows across the cold metal floor. The atmosphere was heavy with the hum of machines, the air thick with tension. This was the second challenge, a test of pure physical endurance and combat against multiple opponents. The instructors were watching closely, no longer laughing at her. The doubt that had clouded their minds during her first battle was gone, replaced by uncertainty and wariness. Her next opponents were a group of 4 alien warriors, all from different parts of the galaxy. These beings were far more advanced than the Kral. One was an Eltarian, a creature with long, armored tentacles that could whip through the air with deadly precision. Another was a Zorvok, a massive beast with thick, armored hide and a booming roar that could shake the ground. The third was a Scallan, a highly intelligent species with advanced telekinetic abilities. And the fourth was a Dracoth, a creature with wings and claws, known for its speed and agility. Zara stood in the center of the arena, her eyes scanning the 4 opponents, who surrounded her in a loose formation. They all eyed her with a mix of disdain and curiosity. To them, she was just another Earthborn, another weakling to be dispatched with ease. They had no idea what they were up against. She took a deep breath, pushing the fear out of her mind. The survival instinct that had been honed in her since childhood kicked in. Earth had taught her one lesson above all others. In the face of overwhelming odds, you must adapt or die. And Zara wasn't about to die today. The signal rang out, and the battle began. The Zorvok charged first, its heavy footsteps thundering across the arena as it rushed at Zara. The ground shook with each step, but Zara was already in motion. She sidestepped the creature's massive fists, narrowly avoiding the crushing blows. She wasn't fast enough to outrun the beast, but that wasn't her goal. She needed to get in close, to take away its advantage of size and strength. Zara darted beneath the Zorvok's massive arm, grabbing a piece of jagged metal from the ground. With a quick twist, she drove it into the soft underbelly of the creature. The Zorvok howled in pain, staggering backward, but Zara didn't let up. She pressed her advantage, using the metal shard to puncture a series of weak points along its torso. The Zorvok let out a final, guttural roar before collapsing, its massive body crashing to the ground with a sickening thud. Zara barely had time to catch her breath before the Scallan attacked. The creature's glowing eyes locked onto hers, and Zara felt a surge of pressure in her mind. The Scallan's telekinetic abilities were powerful. She could feel it, trying to push her down, to trap her in an invisible grip. But Zara had faced telekinetic threats before. Her survival instincts flared as she focused all her mental energy on resisting the Scallan's push. It was a battle of wills. Zara gritted her teeth, her muscles straining as she fought against the invisible force. Her mind raced, calculating every move. She couldn't match the Scalen's power directly, but she didn't need to. She needed to outsmart it. She dropped to the ground, rolling away just as the Scalen's telekinetic grip lost its hold. In a flash, she was on her feet, leaping toward the Scalen. With a precise strike, she jabbed a metal rod into the creature's exposed throat, cutting off its air supply. The Scalen let out a strangled gasp, its eyes wide with surprise as it fell to the ground, unconscious. But there was no time to celebrate. The battle was far from over. The Eltarian and Drakith were still in the fight, and they weren't going to give up easily. The Eltarian moved first, its long tentacles swinging in wide arcs. It was fast, far faster than Zara had anticipated. The tentacles struck with precision, each one capable of slicing through steel. Zara ducked and rolled, narrowly avoiding a series of blows that would have killed her instantly. She wasn't going to outrun the creature, but she didn't need to. Zara used her speed and agility to her advantage, ducking under one tentacle and jumping onto another. She grabbed hold of the Eltarian's tentacle and used its own momentum against it, flipping the creature over her shoulder. The Eltarian crashed to the ground, its tentacles flailing helplessly. Zara wasted no time. She pulled a sharp piece of metal from the ground and drove it into the base of the creature's skull, ending the fight. With 3 opponents down, Zara was feeling the strain. Her body ached, and the adrenaline that had carried her through the first few moments of battle was beginning to fade. But there was still one left. The Drakith. The winged creature hovered in the air, its sharp claws gleaming in the light. It was fast, and it was smart. Zara could already tell that this one would be a different kind of challenge. The Drakith dived at her, its wings slicing through the air with a hiss. Zara dodged, but the Drakith was relentless. It circled above her, waiting for an opening. Zara's eyes narrowed as she scanned the arena, looking for something, anything that could give her an edge. The arena was vast, but there were pillars scattered around. If she could use one to her advantage, the Drakith swooped down again, its claws outstretched. Zara leaped toward a nearby pillar, using it as a springboard. The Drakith followed, but Zara was already in motion. She somersaulted through the air, grabbing onto the Drakith's outstretched wings. She used the creature's own momentum to spin it around, slamming it into the ground with a force that sent shockwaves through the arena. For a moment, the Drakith lay stunned, its wings twitching weakly. Zara didn't hesitate. She grabbed a jagged piece of rock and drove it into the creature's chest, piercing its heart. The Drakith let out one final screech before collapsing to the ground, its wings stilling forever. Zara stood over the fallen creatures, her body bruised and bloodied, but victorious. She had faced overwhelming odds 4 opponents, each stronger and more dangerous than the last, and had come out on top. She was breathing heavily, sweat trickling down her face, but her eyes remained sharp. She knew this wasn't over. There was always more to prove. The instructors, watching from above, were silent. They had expected her to fall, expected her to crumble under the pressure. But Zara had done something no one had anticipated. She had won. As Zara turned to leave the arena, her mind raced. This wasn't just about proving herself anymore. It was about something bigger. Earth had always been written off as weak, as insignificant. But Zara had just shown the galaxy that Earthborn were capable of anything. She wasn't just fighting for herself. She was fighting for her entire species, and the galaxy would soon learn that Earth was a force to be reckoned with. Zara stood at the entrance of the final test chamber, her muscles sore from the previous battles. She had never felt this exhausted before. The cold metal walls of the chamber echoed with a deep hum, and the faint sound of machinery shifting reverberated through the air. The room ahead was silent, almost as if it were waiting for her to step inside. This was it, the final challenge. If she passed, she would be officially inducted into the Galactic Academy. But Zara wasn't thinking about accolades. She was thinking about something far more important. The vault. She had been told nothing about what lay behind the doors. But one thing was certain, it was not a test of physical strength. No. This challenge would be a test of the mind. Zara stepped forward, her footsteps ringing in the stillness as she entered the chamber. The doors behind her slid shut with a soft hiss, sealing her inside. The room was vast, a dark expanse of cold stone, with glowing lines etched into the floor. In the center of the room stood a large console, its surface shimmering with a strange energy. This was the vault, the ultimate test. Zara approached the console cautiously, her eyes scanning the intricate symbols glowing across its surface. It was unlike anything she had ever seen. The language was alien, ancient, and beyond anything Earth had ever encountered. She knew what the vault was supposed to be, a massive repository of galactic knowledge, encrypted and hidden away by the Council centuries ago. No one had ever unlocked it, and no one was supposed to. As she stood in front of the console, Zara's fingers hovered over the controls. She had heard rumors that only those with the right bloodline could access the vault. But she didn't know how that could be possible. Her bloodline was nothing special. Nothing of note. She was just another Earthborn. Someone they had all laughed at just a few days ago. But something deep inside her stirred. A sense of familiarity. A strange connection to the vault. She knew she had to try. Taking a deep breath, Zara pressed her fingers to the console's surface. The moment her skin made contact, the glowing symbols shifted, responding to her touch. She felt a surge of energy run through her body tingling with the strange power emanating from the vault. The symbols rearranged themselves into a new pattern, and the air seemed to vibrate with anticipation. It was as if the vault itself recognized her presence. For a moment, Zara hesitated. Could she really do this? Could she really unlock the secrets that had been hidden away for so long? Her mind raced as she pushed aside the doubts. Earth had always taught her one thing: never back down from a challenge. And this was the ultimate challenge. Zara's fingers moved again, tracing the glowing symbols with precision. As she did, a voice, low and ancient, spoke within her mind. It was a language she had never heard, yet somehow, she understood it. The words were not spoken out loud, but she could hear them clearly in her thoughts. You are not what they think you are. Zara froze, her heart pounding in her chest. The voice continued, its tone both familiar and alien at the same time. You are not weak, Earthborn. You are the key to the past and the future. The console flashed brightly, and Zara was forced to take a step back as a blinding light filled the room. Her body felt weightless, as if she were floating. The walls of the chamber dissolved around her, replaced by a vision of a vast, star-filled galaxy. For a moment, Zara could see everything: the rise and fall of empires, the forging of alliances, the endless struggle for dominance among the stars. It was history, but it was not like any history she had been taught. This was something far older. She could see Earth, not as it was now, but as it had been long before. She saw a time when humanity had been a part of a much larger, much older civilization. Earth had not always been a backwater planet. It had once been a hub of knowledge, a beacon of hope in a galaxy teeming with life. Zara saw her ancestors, humans who had shaped the galaxy in ways she could never have imagined. They had been pioneers, explorers, creators of worlds. But then, something had gone wrong. Something had shattered the unity, and Earth had been cast aside, forgotten by the very people they had once helped to build the stars. The vision faded, and Zara was left standing in the vault once again. But she wasn't the same. The knowledge, the truth, had been unlocked in her mind. She now knew her true identity. She was not just another Earthborn. She was the descendant of the last great architects of the galaxy. Her bloodline had been carefully hidden away, locked in the vault for centuries, to protect the galaxy from the power her ancestors had once wielded. Zara staggered back, her head spinning with the weight of this revelation. The Earth she had always known was not the Earth she had thought it to be. She had been raised in ignorance, shielded from the truth. But now, that truth had been revealed to her, and she had to make a choice. The console before her flickered and shifted, revealing a series of encrypted files, maps, data, blueprints for technologies far beyond anything Zara had ever seen. This was the key to humanity's past, to its place in the galaxy, and to the future of Earth itself. Zara now held the power to change everything. But with this power came responsibility. She wasn't just representing herself anymore. She was representing all of Earth, a species that had been left behind, forgotten. And Zara knew that the galaxy would not take kindly to the return of the Earthborn. There were forces out there that would do anything to keep this knowledge buried. Zara's thoughts raced as the door to the vault opened behind her. She turned to see one of the instructors standing in the doorway. His face a mixture of surprise and wariness. Zara knew that he had been watching the entire sequence, likely from the observation room above. He had seen her unlock the vault, seen the data that had flooded into her mind, and he knew the danger that came with it. "Well," the instructor said, his voice low and cautious, "it seems the Earthborn has unlocked something we never thought possible." Zara turned to face him, her expression hardening. "It's not just me," she said, her voice steady. "It's all of us. Earth wasn't always a forgotten world. It was once the center of this galaxy, and it will be again." The instructor's eyes narrowed. He had heard stories about the ancient Earth, about the technology and knowledge hidden away for centuries. But he had never believed them to be true until now. The truth was undeniable. Zara was the key to unlocking humanity's forgotten legacy. "You don't know what you're dealing with," the instructor warned. "This knowledge is dangerous. The galaxy doesn't want Earth to return to power. There are those who will stop at nothing to keep us down." Zara stood tall, her eyes locked on the instructor. "I don't care what the galaxy wants. Earth is coming back. And we're not going to be forgotten anymore." With those words, Zara turned and walked toward the exit of the vault. She had unlocked the past. And now, she was ready to shape the future. The galaxy was about to learn the truth about Earth and the power it held, and no one, not even the galaxy's greatest powers, would be able to stop her. Zara stepped out of the vault, her mind racing with everything she had just seen. The knowledge she now carried was more than information. It was a map of humanity's past, a key to reclaiming its place in the galaxy, and a warning of the dangers that lurked in the shadows. She felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on her shoulders, but it was a burden she welcomed. For the first time in her life, she understood that she was not just an Earthborn among countless other species. She was a link to a legacy that had once shaped the stars themselves. The instructors, who had watched her unlock the vault, were in stunned silence. Some of them looked uneasy, others bewildered. But all of them were realizing the same truth. The weak Earthborn, standing before them, was far stronger, smarter, and more capable than any of them had ever imagined. One of the instructors, a tall figure named Varric, stepped forward cautiously. "Zara, this changes everything. The vault, the data, it's not meant for anyone to access. How did you do it?" Zara's eyes met his, filled with determination and quiet pride. "I didn't just unlock it. The vault recognized me because of who I am, what I am. I'm Earthborn, yes, but my ancestors. They were the architects of this galaxy. The knowledge they left behind was hidden for a reason. But I can use it to protect humanity and help the galaxy too." Varric studied her carefully. He was a veteran of countless campaigns, a man who had faced wars, alien invasions, and interstellar conspiracies. Yet even he could see the fire in her eyes, the unshakable certainty. "If what you say is true, then Earth has been underestimated for far too long." Zara nodded. "Exactly, and it's time to change that." The news of Zara's achievement spread quickly through the academy. Students and instructors alike were astonished. The whispers of the weak Earthborn turned into murmurs of awe and respect. For centuries, humans had been written off as insignificant, a species whose time had passed. But Zara was proof that those assumptions were not only wrong, they were dangerous. The Academy's council called an emergency meeting to discuss the implications of the vault's unlocking. Zara was brought before them, flanked by a few instructors who now supported her cause. The chamber was massive, filled with representatives from countless alien civilizations. They looked at her with curiosity, suspicion, and, in some cases, fear. "Zara Solari," the council elder said, his voice echoing through the chamber. "You have accessed knowledge that was thought to be lost forever. You claim to be the descendant of the architects of the galaxy. Why should we believe that humanity, long considered a minor species, has any claim to influence the galaxy's future?" Zara took a deep breath, standing taller than she had ever felt. "Because what I've unlocked proves it. The vault is a record of humanity's past achievements, their contributions to the galaxy, and the potential that still exists within us. Humans were never weak. We were hidden, underestimated. But we were architects of civilizations, innovators of technologies, and creators of life in ways other species could never imagine. I am here to restore that legacy, not for power, but for survival, for progress, and for peace." The chamber was silent. No one dared interrupt. Even the council members who had long doubted Earth's significance found themselves speechless. There was a shift in the atmosphere, a recognition that something extraordinary had occurred. Varric stepped forward. "The young Earthborn is right. I watched her in the trials. She defeated enemies no one thought possible, unlocked knowledge no one thought could be accessed. She carries the strength of her species in ways that surpass all expectations. To dismiss her now would be a mistake we cannot afford." A murmur of agreement spread through the council. It was not unanimous, of course. Some representatives were wary, protective of the old order, hesitant to allow humans to rise again, but even they could not deny the evidence before them. The council deliberated for hours, debating the implications of Zara's discovery. Finally, they reached a decision. Humans would be granted a chance to reclaim their place among the galaxy's advanced civilizations. A small delegation would be sent to Earth to establish a new center of learning and cooperation, where knowledge from the vault could be studied and shared responsibly. Zara, of course, was chosen to lead this mission. Zara felt a rush of emotion, pride, relief, and anticipation. She thought of Earth, her home, small and fragile though it was. She thought of the people who had endured centuries of neglect, hardship, and underestimation. Now, she had a chance to give them the respect and recognition they deserved. Her journey back to Earth was unlike any she had ever taken. The stars seemed brighter, the void of space filled with possibility. Zara spent the time studying the data she had unlocked, learning more about the technologies, strategies, and histories of her ancestors. Every discovery filled her with determination. Earth was not weak. Earth was destined for greatness. When she arrived, the people of Earth were astonished. They had heard rumors of the Academy, of the distant stars, but none of them had imagined the scale of the galaxy beyond their world. And then, they saw Zara strong, confident, and radiating the authority of someone who had unlocked the secrets of the past. Zara addressed the assembled crowd, her voice steady and clear. "We have been underestimated for too long. For centuries, the galaxy has forgotten what humans are capable of. But we are not weak. We are survivors. We are creators. We have been architects of civilizations, and now, it is time to rise again." The people of Earth listened in awe. Some were skeptical, but most could feel the truth in her words. The fire that had always burned quietly in humanity, the will to survive, to endure, to achieve was awakening. With the Council's support and the knowledge from the vault, Zara began to build a new era for Earth. Schools were established to study the advanced technologies her ancestors had created. Scientists and engineers began to work with the alien delegation to understand and implement the knowledge stored in the vault. Soldiers trained not only in Earth's ways, but also in advanced tactics shared by the galaxy's other civilizations. Zara herself became a symbol of hope, a reminder that Earthborn were not weak. The trials she had faced at the Academy were only the beginning. There would be challenges ahead. Others in the galaxy would doubt, resist, or even try to sabotage Earth's resurgence. But Zara had proven once and for all that determination, intelligence, and courage could overcome even the most impossible odds. In the months that followed, Earth began to flourish in ways no one had imagined. The planet that had been considered fragile and insignificant was now a center of learning, innovation, and diplomacy. Humans began to take their place alongside the galaxy's most advanced species, not through force or conquest, but through knowledge, skill, and determination. Zara continued to lead, always reminding her people of the lessons she had learned. Strength was not just in the body. It was in the mind, in the will, and in the courage to stand when others doubted you. She knew the galaxy would continue to challenge them. But she also knew that Earthborn had something no other species could match: the ability to endure, adapt, and rise above. And so, the weak Earthborn became a legend. Not because of her strength alone, but because she had unlocked the truth of her identity and used it to change the destiny of her entire species. The galaxy had laughed once, but it would never forget again. Earth had returned, and it would shape the future of the stars for generations to come. Zara looked up at the night sky, the countless stars twinkling like distant promises. She smiled, knowing that this was only the beginning. The vault had unlocked the past, but she was the key to the future. And the future was bright, for Earth, for humanity, and for the galaxy itself.